And Harley, of course, like your t-shirt, people who are Harley purists, they will go for Harley.
The Triumph, in our first impressions, came out as a better overall product, and hardly, I was about to say hardly.
Hardly.
Today, we have a very special video for you. We're going to be discussing about the much discussed about Harley Davidson X440 and the Triumph Speed 400X. My colleague Shivank Bhatt has just come back and he's ridden the Triumph. I've just come back and I've ridden the Harley Davidson. It's not much of a competition, but we'll probably get a first drive impression of which one we like more. I like to start off that I haven't ridden the Triumph and he hasn't ridden the Harley. So this is just to see that how we like the bikes on first impressions.
Just exchanging notes. So tell us, how's the Harley? Because I haven't ridden that motorcycle, but again, that was the ride that happened first and you went for it. So how was the bike?
In terms of the Harley Davidson X440, I think it's a mixed bag. For someone who really wants a Harley Davidson, the badge holds a lot of value. It is a decent motorcycle in terms of what they're offering, and I'd also like to appreciate Hero MotoCorp because they actually went forth and actually got this bike made. They told us that they've started production of this bike in 2020, and there's a lot of hardships in getting this bike to production, and it's finally out. The Harley Davidson X440 is is a sports cruiser with brand value. It handles well, has good features, but you can understand that it's made on a budget. You can see the paint runoff on the frames, the quality of switches is not that great. Like even the instrument console, it's not very crisp. Like if they had to give a color TFT display and there's not much else on the motorcycle, I wanted a little more zing and panache in the instrument console. I didn't get that. But when I started riding it, that's when it clicked. It's a really good motorcycle in terms of handling. When it comes to the engine, it has a short power band, but that when the power does come on, it comes on pretty strong. Between the 2000 to 4500 RPM mark, it really feels nice to ride. And I think overall, it'll be an interesting motorcycle to choose for someone who's looking maybe at a cruiser which he can use on everyday basis and not think twice when he has to go out on weekend rides. And with that, I think I'll throw the same question to you. What were your first impressions of the Triumph?
So the Triumph feels exactly like a Triumph in terms of quality, in terms of paint, in terms of fit and finish. The quality is exactly like a Triumph. It's just a scaled down version. And design-wise also, it is a modern classic in the sense it's a retro modern sort of a thing. But it's not a cruiser per se. I think it's again a roadster, the way it looks. And it is a very good looking motorcycle first and foremost. You know, they have got the proportions absolutely spot on. So I think the Triumph, without even riding that motorcycle, a lot of people, including myself, we have booked it already because it looks like a proper Triumph. It's just a single cylinder Triumph. Now, the other thing about the Triumph is, when we saw the pricing, we thought there is a catch somewhere. It's not going to be as great to ride, especially at that price point. But after riding the motorcycle, I have to say that it surpassed all the expectations. I think it is a great motorcycle to ride as well. The handling is phenomenal. Bajaj let us ride that motorcycle on the track and we did crazy speeds over there. I could hit 170 kilometers per hour on the back straight, and around corners also, it's phenomenal. The way that motorcycle handles, the way that motorcycle brakes, it feels like a Triumph. Perfect Triumph. Yes, the engine is a single cylinder. It produces around 40 bhp, 37.5 Newton meters of torque, but it is a light motorcycle and it has got solid grunt. So the engine technically, if you think about it, if you compare the specs, you'll think that it's the same engine as the Dominar because they both
Is it the same as the Duke?
So no, the only thing that they share with Dominar and the Duke as well, 390, is the bore. So the bore is identical for all the bikes, 89 millimeters, I think. But of course, the Triumph has a longer stroke because the Duke and Dominar, they are 373cc or something, thereabouts. So yes, it is slightly different in that sense. You'll think they share the mechanicals and everything, but that's not the case. The Triumph's engine is an all-new unit. Now, of course, that bore value will probably raise a lot of eyebrows because you'll think it's identical. But Bajaj told us that it's also the design. They didn't have to reinvent the wheel for, let's say, turbulence inside the cylinder for the air and fuel ratio. So that's why they kept the bore identical. But apart from that, Everything is new. It is a 4-valve engine. It's DOHC. And again, it is a liquid cooled engine. So it is quite advanced in that sense. And I think overall that motorcycle, I don't think there is anything to complain about it. Apart from the fact that, yes, it does vibrate a bit, especially from 4,000 RPM to 6,000 RPM. So when you're cruising or when you're in the city, you'll definitely feel the vibrations are there and it buzzes quite a lot. But the engine, I was thinking that it was going to be like a Harley or a Triumph, like a long stroke engine, lot of torque. But that engine also feels quite snappy. The throttle response is crisp and it is a quite manic sort of motorcycle, the engine. And I think overall, apart from the vibrations which were there, I don't think there is any flaw in that motorcycle, really.
In terms of the Harley, that produces 27 bhp and 38 Newton meters of torque. But unfortunately, we only got to ride that bike on the track. And really, that characteristic which they wanted to portray didn't really come out. Like they had a high-speed track. We did try to get it up to as much speed as possible. I managed to do about 139, and that's not where it likes to live. Where it likes to live is in 5th gear at about 100, 110. 6th gear completely feels like overdrive. It likes to short shift up to 5th gear, and that's where it likes to live. And that's where it's happiest. And in terms of the throttle response, once you try to get it going, it feels a bit lethargic. And then once you start pushing it further, then there's a pretty steep climb in the power band, and then it likes to taper off pretty suddenly. And that I felt was a bit misleading. Like, you know, you tend to think that like you can live in one gear all the time, like no matter what the speed is, what gear you're in, you twist the throttle.
That's exactly what the Triumph does, because you can pull it from as low as 30 kilometers per hour in 6th gear. It will carry on. There is no jara, there's nothing. So even the gearing is quite sorted on the Triumph. And I think if you're riding it in the city, you'll probably enjoy the Triumph because it is a small motorcycle. It has a shorter footprint compared to the Harley, I'd say. And even the ride quality. So how's the ride quality on the Harley? Because on one hand, it looks like it's a cruiser, but it looks more like a Sportster or Roadster to me. So what is it like in terms of living with it daily? Like how would you define it?
Full disclaimer that we only had smooth tarmac, but in that bit, what we got to know was that if you do have like open stretches of highway with decent roads, I think it'll do well. But the suspension is slightly on the stiffer side, and you will feel that once you do like at speeds, like they have very progressive suspension setup. So you go over them at higher speeds, it won't be much of a problem. But in low and medium speeds, I think it'll feel a bit jarring. But that also helps in terms of cornering. For some reason, that's what I wanted to do all the time. Just wanted to throw it into a corner. Like it's light, it feels smooth through a corner. Obviously, like because I said it likes to be short shifted, so I had to always downshift into a corner and then upshift coming out of it. That was a bit of an annoying part, but it's light, it's smooth, and like I think like you will end up having fun. The biggest problem with its handling is its foot pegs. Like its own equipment is what hinders you in its handling. I was scraping the foot pegs all the time. I ended up scraping the exhaust as well, but I was having so much fun, I just couldn't stop. But obviously I would have liked to get it out on an actual highway to see its actual livability in terms of highway cruising. And I would like to say that Harley and Hero were very, very serious about the exhaust note which comes out of which it has. And when at idle and low speed, it sounds a bit raspy, but at higher speeds, that's when they're able to get a bit of that Harley V12 thump out of it. And you do feel like once the engine settles into a rhythm, that's when the exhaust actually ends up sounding pretty decent.
So I wanted to ask you one thing about the Harley, in comparison to Triumph, because the Triumph handling is brilliant. And Harley also, I heard that the handling is phenomenal. Right. But the India spec Triumph has a couple of modifications. Harley is only made in India, made for India. So we have to remind you that Harley is not Harley per se,
Harley.
right? Because Triumph is a global product.
Hero Davidson.
Yeah, but Harley is just a product of licensing. I think Hero's got the license to use the product name, and it's not available anywhere else in the world. But the Triumph is going to be a global product, like I said. So it's going to be made in India, and it's going to be made in Thailand as well, in Brazil as well, and it'll be shipped to all across the world.
Yeah.
So the Triumph, the global spec version and India spec version, there is a little bit of difference, and I'd like to point that out because interestingly, there are a lot of changes. It's also 6 kilograms heavier. We have done a short on that on YouTube. But the biggest change is, of course, the wheels and tires, and it gets Apollo tires as compared to Pirelli or Mercedes in global markets. Now, a lot of people, they thought these are cut price tires, but actually that's not the case because the Apollo Alpha 1 are kick-ass tires. The handling is really phenomenal. The grip levels are extraordinary, and you'll enjoy riding that motorcycle. The other thing is, and it's very interesting, is the suspension setup. So Triumph says that the suspension, they have worked the spring rates in the sense they've revised it, and I thought it's going to be softer, but they made it stiffer for...
Revised it as in like, did they...
No, the suspension...
Did they want the international version first and then they thought of it?
Yeah, so the international version, the hardware is exactly the same, 43mm upside down forks, but the spring rates, the India version has stiffer setup, whereas the global spec has softer setup. And I was surprised because I thought because of the roads, it should be opposite. But the reasoning was that, Indian roads, you don't want a sloppy suspension setup. So that's why they've stiffened it up. And on the road, if the road is not perfect, you will actually feel it. The front suspension is a little stiff. You can feel it when you're riding it over bad roads. The rear is okay, but it comes with 10-step preload adjustability. So you can really change with it, alter it. And it feels all right. On the track, I felt when you're really pushing it, it is a bit reactive in the sense it is a little soft. But overall, the setup works perfect in all road conditions. So I wanted to understand how's the Harley in comparison. Does it feel as perfect for our roads?
I think it feels fairly adequate, right? Like in how they've set up the suspension, like it's a upside 43mm KYB upside down fork at the front and like dual nitro shocks at the back. And it's 7-step preload adjustable as well, which I think was...
Triumph has a monoshock.
Yeah. But like they were very specific in that you guys ride it and you will not feel the lack of a monoshock. And I think that's fair enough. They did very well in terms of tuning those dual shocks, and it really doesn't need it. Because it helps out in ironing out the imperfections of the road to a fair extent on straight roads. And it is even pretty compliant once you take it through the corner. So I don't think I ever felt that I would probably want like a really race spec monoshock sort of deal. I think it's like for a Harley and for a made in India Harley, I think it's the right choice which they made. And to be fair, because with the features that they have to offer with the connected car, connected tech and everything, you can understand, they, along with the heritage, with the affordability that they wanted to bring to the customers, I think it's a good enough job which they've done. And overall, I'm really looking forward to getting it out on the road, because that was a bit of a teaser and I liked it. And I think suspension-wise, engine-wise, I'm not really here or there. But suspension-wise, I really wouldn't want to see what it has to offer on the road.
Okay, so we'll quickly wrap it up now.
Yeah.
In the sense, let's talk about the biggest thing about these motorcycles, the pricing. So
wait, hold on. We actually didn't talk about how you like the design of the motorcycle.
So like I said, the Triumph, it feels like a Triumph. It is not over the top. The Harley is, of course, more sporty looking in that sense, but the Harley...
But half of the bike is sporty.
Exactly. So Harley is not a roadster and not a cruiser. So it's Baker, it's a little confused.
It's what you want it to be. It's
basically there. How do I say it? I mean, there are a lot of ingredients in there. Basically,
they wanted everything.
It seems like Harley has put all their know-how in one bike. I mean, it looks good. To be very frank, it looks good. But
from the front end.
Yeah, certain.
And the rear end is divisive.
Yeah, I mean, I felt even the fit and finish from pictures, what I saw, wasn't up to the mark as compared to the Triumph. Now let's come back to the price.
Price.
So of course, a Triumph absolutely
killed it,
right? I saw the Harley's pricing. I was like 2.2.
Harley killed it until Triumph killed it.
Yeah, so Harley just had one day to They just had one day to basically enjoy and party, but then Triumph literally crashed their party.
Yeah.
So Triumph's pricing is amazing, right? 2.23 lakh. First, to give you some perspective, the Classic, that Chrome Edition 350 Royal Enfield Classic, it's more expensive than the Triumph. The Dominar is more expensive than the Triumph. It's a Bajaj. The BMW is around 50,000 more than the Triumph. It has less power, less CCs, less equipment also. KTM is also more expensive, around 2.8 or 2.9, the 390 I think. So everything is more expensive. So I think with just this bike alone, Triumph has absolutely killed the entire competition, and that's just in regards to the pricing. The product is also brilliant. It's phenomenal. It's not that there's a compromise on that front. So I think this is Bajaj or Triumph's KTM first gen Duke 390 moment, because that's what they did. It like disrupted the market.
Have they killed it though? Like, because
I don't. Okay.
The thing is, they will really have to work on the marketing bit in order to get out the like, whoever knows about Triumph and whoever is excited about the Triumph is who's been following the launch of the Triumph. But Harley Davidson 400cc, 2 lakhs, made in India, I think that's which will...
I think, that was probably the case 10 years ago, but with internet, everything is there. People can see through that, right? So they'll compare notes, they'll compare the specs, and they'll come to know that Triumph is a superior product, at least on paper. Yeah. And I'm ready to bet that on the road also, in the real world also, the Triumph is a more superior product for sure. Yeah. So overall, I think, again, the customers for these bikes are also going to be very similar, in the sense they don't want a sporty motorcycle, they want a retro motorcycle, big brand name. So Triumph and Harley are very evenly matched on that front. And design-wise also, I think both are roadsters, right? They can call it cruiser, modern classics, whatever it is, but they're roadsters. They are basically primarily ridden in the city.
Mine's a sports cruiser.
I don't know the Harley.
Okay, I can't call it a roadster.
Yeah, but I think primarily
not
people are going
to
use them in the city and occasional rides on the highway. So I think in that regard, the Triumph does come across as a superior product. Well, yes, the Harley had everything going for it for just one day.
Yeah.
But I think it's the Triumph that ultimately would take the cake.
Yeah.
And Harley, of course, like your t-shirt, people who are Harley purists, they will go for Harley. Although it's not a Harley.
It's not a...
But yeah. But anyway, I mean, it has a brand name, and I think it will do well in that regard. And the pricing is also good. But I think really this...
I would give it more. I would give it brand value. I'd give it half mark on styling. I'd give it features in compared to what we're these two motorcycles.
Even the Triumph doesn't have any feature. Like, in the sense, it doesn't get a color TFT display. It has a very basic display. So... I mean, the Triumph is very basic in that regard. Of course, everything in terms of engineering, everything is state of the art. But what you see, there's nothing much in it. It's analog.
To sum up this video, if I'd say the Triumph in our first impressions came out as a better overall product, and Harley, I was about to say Harley. And the Harley Davidson comes out as a more feel-good motorcycle.
Yeah.
So that's how we'd sum it up. And no doubt,
of course, this is not a comparison.
This is just first impressions.
Discussing notes, like we
discussing with you guys, discussing amongst ourselves.
We'll get the motorcycles very soon. We'll put them out on the road and then do a real world comparison.
Exactly.
But this is our first impression of these motorcycles. So do let us know what you think of these bikes. Of course, tell us which one is your favorite, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video as well. And yeah, do share your thoughts.
Aren't we forgetting something? Yeah.
Oh, these Royal Enfield guys.
A bit of a teaser for you guys.
I'm just saying, market leader, but not going to be the case.
Classic 350 may not be the bike to compare it against.
Just
yeah, but
just say
the Triumph is cheaper. Okay, so we will do a big comparison test soon with Royal Enfields, Harleys, and Triumphs.
Look forward to it.
Stay tuned for sure.